Before we start by saying welcome to the DGD podcast, I'm going to let you know right now, close your ears for your kids if they are listening to this, because I'm going to give you 2 seconds and then I'm going to let you know what's going on, folks. Fuck Auburn. Simple as that. Welcome to the DGD podcast. Obviously, it is Auburn hate week. That's my worst. I hate that team with a passion. Um, Obviously, joining me here, Kobe. Juan will be here shortly. Got a lot to talk about. We're going to preview. The Auburn game Saturday, and then we're going to make our picks. As always, it is the Wednesday picks brought to you by BetUS. 6033 in the chat saying, "Let's go Juan fan club." Yes, sir. And also, fuck Auburn, war damn pigeons. Yes, sir. Kobe, welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. I like that. I like that little hi, how are you? That's interesting. Not even mad about it. Not even mad about it. Joel calling me out for potty mouth. Hey, I told people to close their ears. Earmuffs, man. I told people to earmuffs. That's how I really feel, too, by the way. Not going to lie. I just despise Auburn. Listen, we'll go ahead and get started. I don't want to go ahead and jump into this. Looking at Georgia, right, Kobe, we saw a forgetful game Saturday against Missouri. But it's the Deep South Soldiers rivalry. And in my opinion, Georgia has to come out and make a statement this week, right? Auburn, for that matter, played LSU close, loss, right, in a loss. So it's going to be interesting to see how this game plays out. Obviously, Georgia is a huge favorite, which we'll discuss a little bit later. What are your thoughts if you're Georgia heading into this week? I mean, you play at Georgia. You know, you've probably been in this mindset prepping for this game. What went through your head when you played?
It's one of those things this week that you kind of have a bad taste in your mouth from last week, and up to this point, you've had some really good games. You've really seen what this team can be, and then you've had some games where you can see what this team can be. Kind of the other side of that coin. You've seen some weaknesses. You've seen some things to work on. Which is good. We have a young team. Going into this week, I will always say that I absolutely hate that this week we are playing Auburn in October. From now,
it should always be November. It should always be November, and I despise the fact that we caved in and moved the game from November to the early October. I see exactly what you mean, because
Right.
when it happened, it was one of those things where, listen, why should we cave in because of your schedule? Because in my opinion, I don't think we cared. Like, it's not our problem that you play us and then basically a cupcake between us and Bama. Now, listen, at the same time, they also play. So Auburn also at the time played Alabama and Georgia the same year, home and away. So both games were either at Sanford and Bryant Denny or at Jordan Hare. Um, that's another reason why I say to hell with Auburn. Okay, um, I never liked that to begin with, and when we did that, I felt like we were just caving into to them to help them out, even though they haven't capitalized on it at all. Right? They really haven't. Um, I'm still feeling that. Right? Like I still irks me to this day, because that game feels like it should be a November game, like you said.
Well, it's been a November game for a long time, and at this point, the hardest thing about it is, you know, um, for Auburn, you get on hot streaks. You have years where you really have an opportunity to do some damage. I mean, you look at 2017. You have the Dogs at home, beat them, upset number one, and then 2 weeks later you have the Tide, who also are number one at home again, and then you kind of ride that momentum train. If you're Auburn and you're thinking you're doing okay, and you beat Georgia in October, it's a long way between October and when you play Alabama. And yes, that may be good if you have some bumps and bruises along the way or whatever. But at some point, if you're riding high on playing well, you'd like to play your best opponents pretty side by side. You don't want there to be this long lull of, oh well, Alabama, you really need to be paying attention to how Auburn's playing. And I think it's been hard because ever since this change has happened, um, between the ADs with the schedule, is Auburn just hasn't been good since then. So you haven't really seen that impact yet. And you know, it's one of those things that in 5 years, 4 years, if Auburn's back to where they once were, it could be an interesting October game, but it basically replaced Auburn with Tennessee in November, and it really made your schedule harder by changing to make Auburn's schedule easier.
Yeah, that's. I mean, to me, I felt like it was purely lopsided. I want to say that was before Brooks, Josh Brooks came in as AD, if I'm not mistaken. That was one of McGarity's parting gifts, if you will. Um, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole though. Yeah, that's a whole nother. You could talk a whole nother episode about that stuff, but I'm not going to do that. Anyways, listen, you take away, right? Like, I want to move into what Georgia, like moving into this week, right? There was some obviously a lot of negatives, right? There were some flaws, some lack of execution, just to name a couple things that Georgia struggled with. But there were also some positive takeaways, and I think what's going to have to happen, Kobe, is this: you have to take what physicality, right? The physicality that you brought, the simplistic nature of what you did. You went back to what, right? You went back to your bread and butter per se. Uh, and listen, once you started doing these things, you basically neutralized them in the second half, right? Defense, right? Listen, outside of a couple plays, right? They did their job. You can't be mad at the defense for holding them to field goals. Listen, two explosive plays generated probably 80 or 90% of their offense, like pass rushing at least. So, obviously you want to limit those explosives. Kirby said that several times through the past. But in the offensive side of the ball, offense, first off, I think what you have to do is you have to shake the cobwebs out and wake up, right? I don't want to hear this excuse that, oh, it was Kent State and Missouri, so we played down to the competition. That's bullshit to me. It really is. It does it No, it should not be that way. I'm hoping, right, that moving forward, you see a more focused, alert team in a sense that, hey, listen, anything can happen against anybody, right? If you look around the college landscape right now, I've said it over and over again. This has a eerie similarity to 2007. Everything crazy happened that could happen, and luckily, fortunately for us, it hasn't bit us yet. But you don't want it to. So what you need to do is wake up and execute. Come out and do what you did against Oregon and South Carolina. Right. Start off strong. Run that score up fast. Make the game just one of those where, like, oh, okay, they have no point in being here, right? With Missouri, you saw what happened in a hostile environment when you give teams you bring hope because of your slow start. That place was electric. It was. You sit there, you do what Georgia's supposed to do, run the scoreboard, get it up 21-0 pretty quick. You take that element out, and it makes your whole game easier at that point. You don't have to worry about the environment, the crowd, like that. We've saw what it can do. A hostile environment can do for opponents, right? Look at who's come into Arkansas last year is a perfect example. Take the game, wake up, come out, execute. You won't have that issue. Fortunately for us, this game's between the hedges, right? But when you're going to go on the road, right? You got to go to Starkville a little in a few weeks. Obviously, you're going to Jacksonville every year, and you're going to Kentucky toward the end of the year. I'm not saying, we'll talk about this later, but there's still going to be difficult places to play. Mississippi State is wild, right? It's wild. Um, so you have to get out and do what you're supposed to do, uh, and that starts with execution on offense, right? Excuse me. Kobe, what do you think Georgia has to? What's the mindset? How do you push? I guess I should explain this better. How do you push the Missouri game out and turn all your focus on Auburn at this point?
I think they came in Monday. They sat in meetings. They went through the good, bad, the ugly, what we did good, what we didn't do good, and what we just were plain ugly with. At this point, ball security still a question. And then tackling at times, and then just some of the young guys. In the secondary have an eye discipline, and when the quarterback is rolling out of the pocket, to know that that's not your job and you have to worry about your job, and your job is the receiver you're covering. It hurt you a time or two where you miss a sack or miss a tackle. Boom, there's one issue you need to fix to begin with. But from there, then you have a DB just take, I mean, it's not much. If you go back and watch the video, I think we take a half a step forward to the quarterback and he throws it right over your head. But it's those small things that lead to big things. Same thing on the long run that they had that Malachi chased down. If you go back and you watch the film, Pop guesses basically the run is happening in the B hole, and he attacks the B hole. I mean, if it would have gone in there, it'd have been a Jadeveon Clowney type hit on the running back. But it didn't. It bounced and bounces back A. And when it bounces back A, there's no one left there to stop him. And then you have, like you're saying, those big explosive plays. And you're gonna have those in college football. Even like Kirby said, you want to limit them and you don't want them to turn into sevens. But I mean, there's just not many games that you're gonna play this year where the opposing kicker goes 5 for 5, with two of those being over 50 yards. Um, but I agree. You just kind of you brush the get up, brush yourself off, say, they really hit us in the mouth. They hit us with their best shot, and we responded and we won. Now, no, Auburn's going to hit you with their best shot, but you just have to be better this week at running the ball, at gap discipline, at all these things.
Absolutely. For the record, I want to go back to your comment about B hole and A hole. Um, for the record, perfectly out of context. So now we're talking about running the ball. So just I thought that was interesting. But nonetheless, listen, I think you look at the offensive line, right? When we went from zone to gap scheme, in my opinion, that was when the light clicked and we just became what we've seen in the past for the first 3 weeks. So I feel like listen, I can't knock the fact that we made adjustments, but I feel like it was literally almost too late when we did make those adjustments, right? you know you have to make these adjustments and stick to what you're best at, right? Like, know your personnel. If you know our offensive line is better at gap scheme, or yeah, gap, run it gap, like gap scheme, keep it that way. Like that's my thought on it. To your credit, listen, also to your point about the kicker from Mizzou, right? I wouldn't say 9 times out of 10, but probably 80% of kickers outside of him, you're not going to be that consistent, especially from that far out. That
Most
was
most teams you play, you'd have been lucky to have gone 3 for 5 against
yeah.
us on field goals.
I mean, especially what if you watch the kicks that he made? I think one was 52, and I think he made a 56 yarder. And the problem, or I wouldn't even say the problem, it was just the dude had so much more range off of the 56. Like, it wasn't like it barely skimmed over. Like, it hit the net. And that tells you right there that this guy is going to be an NFL kicker. Eerie similarity to Sebastian Janikowski, in my opinion. It was one of those things where you sit there, you just got to give him credit. Like, there's a reason why him and Jack Podlesny were co-special teams players of the week for the SEC. Both of them were extremely accurate. And like I said, multiple 50-yard plus. That's NFL style shit right there. That really is. That really is. So you have to credit him having probably one of the better games of his career. Definitely going to raise some eyes in the scouting department in NFL rooms. But at the same time, right? Look, you have to credit the defense for holding them out of the end zone. You do. Now, to translate this to Auburn, right? Auburn has a mobile quarterback. Probably one. I wouldn't say. I don't think he's more mobile than Bo Nix, right? I don't think so. But nonetheless, he's pretty. I'd say he's pretty mobile, Robbie Ashford, if he is indeed the starter. Um, but he's young. He's inexperienced, right? Georgia has to Georgia has to capitalize on that and get pressure, right? Get pressure, and get in his face and make him uncomfortable. You just have to. And I'm telling you right now, if Georgia's capable of doing that, if you're able to do that like you expect you should, it's going to be a long day for Auburn, right? With that being said, though, you're going to have to find ways to get pressure without your best player, and that's Jalen Carter. With the MCL sprain, I think it is like a slight MCL sprain, so that's out for a week or two. I don't think he'll be back until Florida game. That's just me.
which will be
Um,
fun. I mean, a week or two, play Auburn Vandy bye week.
yeah, I mean, listen. At the same time, you want him back, right? Like, let's be honest. I want Jalen Carter fully healthy, because anything less, I don't want to risk injury, especially with him being the top 5 pick projected, right? Like, you know, protect your future too. Um, which kind of leads me to how he got hurt in the first place. Like, in my opinion, I know I talked about it Monday. It still irks the ever living fuck out of me to see the tackle, right, the offensive lineman go for his ankle like that, like go for his leg like that. You can call it a backside block, right, or the cut, right. That's not what that was. That's not exact. That's nothing close to what it's supposed to be. Like, so, my thought was, you can't. There shouldn't be any place for that dirty stuff like that, man, because it hurts people, right? And I'm not saying it's just because it was one of our players that got hurt, but how many times watching games back in the day, Kobe, did we see Paul Johnson's guys running obviously the option? They were notorious for cut blocks, notorious for that. You know, so you have to, like. I feel like the type of blocks that he did was out of. I just don't like it. I just don't like it at all. Um, because now you're missing a player. But obviously we talked about Jalen Carter being out, but you're also getting somebody else back, and that's Javon Bullard. Um, I thought that Tyke Smith played extremely well, right, in place of Javon. But what does Javon being back on this defense do for Georgia moving forward? Obviously, into Auburn game.
Yeah, and to start with, I just want to touch on the blocks a little bit too. Is if you haven't seen the clip, go watch it. It's the kind of thing like with Paul Johnson's offense, at least you were at a point where all the offensive linemen were cutting pretty regularly, so you're looking for it. In this scheme in Missouri, it's the right block. It fits the block. If done properly, I would say I'm not against that style of block. The problem is that tackle definitely had a mission that night, and you're definitely engaged up top with someone while someone hits you low, which should be a penalty. It happened 2 or 3 times during the game, and none
At
of
least
them got
at least
called.
twice. I
Um,
know, if you're not familiar, Brooks Austin, he pointed this out on Twitter. There was a he tweeted it out, basically showed two separate clips. I want to say it's the same offensive lineman doing the same thing multiple times, right? Like, what he was saying, that was, you're not taught that way. That's not taught. It's taught the exact opposite way, right? You're taught to put your face at the play side knee, not diving straight for the, you know what I mean? Not like that. So I know that's what, from an analytical standpoint, that's what the guy did. There's no place for that, right?
And it's just
Um,
it's hard because too it's taught. One of the reasons Paul Johnson ran that kind of offense, and the other reason it's taught at a school like Missouri is that tackle is probably not as good as Jalen Carter ever. Like ever at Missouri in the next 10 years, they will probably never have a tackle good enough to block Jalen Carter 1-on-1. So what they do is they incorporate, okay, I'm not fast enough to get there. I'm not good enough to get there. And even if I was, once I got there, I'm probably still going to get beat. What's the easiest way to block this guy? Boom, let me fall down, be down in his knees and ankles, see if I can't trip him, take him out of this play. Um, it's one of those things that, yes, does it need to? It definitely need to be looked at by the SEC office this week. Will it be removed from football? No, but it you still hate to see it because it's kind of like the Kayvon Thibodeau um, preseason
Yeah.
injury where
Yep.
Thaddeus Moss comes across and instead of just blocking him head up, he drops low right into his knee. You know, it, I'm surprised. With tackling the way it's been on defense as well. That you don't see more knee shots against offensive players. It's just hard because the knee is just so vital and it's so exposed when you play football. I mean, you can get hit in a various amount of ways and really just hurt your knee, and there's no quick way to come back from that.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're 100% right. Excuse me. With obviously, listen, obviously it is what it is now, right? So you have to game plan without Jalen Carter. Um, yeah, what it tells me, Kirby's going to have one of these defensive linemen step up and make plays. So far, there's been good play, but you haven't saw that one person truly stand out, right? Aside from Jalen Carter, right? As simple as that. I'm not saying, like I said, don't take this the wrong way. There's been good play, but you haven't had somebody step up and be that elite play, right? You're seeing the effects of not having Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt, right? We kind of knew this was to be expected. Um, you know, I think you look at a guy like Stackhouse, right? I think Stackhouse, in my opinion, should be the guy that takes a step up. I think that's my prediction for someone that will, in the absence of Jalen Carter. But I need at least one person to go out and just make a statement, right, and step their game up to that level that we need. Obviously, Nolan Smith's been doing great. Linebackers, even as young as they are, right, and they're still making excellent plays too. I just think that we need to get pressure. Looking at Auburn right now, we have to get pressure on Robbie Ashford, and you're going to need, your edge rushers to contain, keep him in the pocket so that your D lineman can, can pressure him that way, and don't let him get outside of the pocket. I feel like probably the best bet if you're Georgia from a defensive standpoint, because if you are able to contain him in the pocket, right, I don't think they stand a chance at all.
Yeah, and
At
I
all.
would even argue, I mean, Tank Bigsby, like you're gonna have to control and limit him how he beats you on the ground, but you're also gonna have to hopefully control and limit how they use him in other ways. Is it a screen game? Is it swing passes out of the backfield? Is he lined up at a close receiver type thing? Even he's definitely their X factor. He's the guy on their team that could play here. You had to say that could play anywhere and be one of the better running backs. And it's just to the point where, like Missouri, you have that same run you had Missouri against Auburn. He scores. Tank Bigsby's going to score. He's not going to get caught at the one. Um, he to me, if you limit him, keep him under 50 yards, 75 yards, all-purpose yards, you're gonna walk away with this one fairly big.
I mean, I think so too, right? Like, so far, right, Georgia these past couple games has caused a sense of doubt with our ability to cover these huge spreads, right? Like, and like I said, obviously, when we make our picks, we'll talk about this, but I think we've talked a lot about defense, but offensively, listen, I think you have to get the ball into Brock Bowers and the tight ends for that matter, because listen, Darnell Washington saved us offensively Saturday, right? He made several key plays, right? And also, like, I'm not going to just leave it to him. Don Blaylock. Don Blaylock. This is a fun stat for me. He has yet to drop a pass, and I hope to God I don't jinx this, but he has yet to drop a pass in his career. Now he hasn't played much, that you know what I mean, but nonetheless, when he was targeted, he catches it, he comes down with it. Um, So I think you need to get the ball into to Brock Bowers' hands. I think you look at Lab McConkey, get them in space, get them in space, because once you saw, think about this, Kobe. Once we saw that first screen pass, they couldn't stop it, and I don't know if a lot of teams can. Honestly, I just don't think they can. Um, so I think you do what we, stick to what we did to start the season, because I don't see a lot of people stopping it whatsoever. I just don't. Like I said, you sit there. I think you work counter, right? Do some bunch sets, right? If you look at what we did when we go bunch, it is so hard to defend, so extremely difficult to defend, right? But all these concepts that we're talking about can't be done if you don't execute, and it starts with the quarterback. Stetson, I love you. You my dog. You will be my dog for the season, but I need you to execute. There were several times where just missed, just miss, and that's not going to win you games if you have the aspirations of being a national title contender. Auburn is a good game to get back on track. In theory, they're down, right? It's not your typical Auburn rivalry game, in my opinion. There's so much going on in Auburn, within the program there, that and they're just not a good team, right? It's crazy to me that they're a 3-2 team coming into this game. I don't see them as a 3-2 team, even though they are. It's so wild. Like, they should be 2-3 at best, because Missouri literally Missouri and lost that game for them. They handed them the game, literally, quite literally. Um, but I think what we'll do here, and I see some comments, so I'm gonna read a couple off here. Um, people are calling for one right now, man. People wonder where he is, but they also have some accusation or speculation as to where he is. Joel says that he must be up at the North Pole, bossing all those elves around, while the 63 says he ran out of beard flour, had to go to the store. Um, yeah, I mean, those are some good speculations. But as we go back to the football side of things, let's talk about players of the games. 6033 DGD says, my player of the game is McConkey. He's about to bounce back. I think you get on track this week with him. Kobe, I'm gonna let you start off with this one. Who's your offensive and defensive players of the game for this week?
I think we come out and I think we bounce back in throwing the ball and running the ball some. I think your offensive line really steps up. I would say that a lot of people were having some questions about the offensive line after last week. People are wondering, why are we rotating? Why do we have seven guys that are coming in and out? Why do we have, why don't we have a set five guys that are playing? Auburn's got some good defensive linemen, some good defensive ends. I think the O line is going to be my players of the game this week. I think they bounce back, they block well, they pick up pressures well. Um, let's go with no sacks given up by the offensive line this
All
week.
right, all right,
And
all
then
right.
defensive wise, it's hard because I'm not even sure if they're gonna look his way. But Keely Ringo had a sneaky kind of tough game against Missouri. We haven't seen a lot of teams challenge him. We haven't seen a lot of teams um, run passing patterns his way to put him in a bad position. A lot of times if they've thrown it at Keeley, it's been underneath stuff, making him come up and make a tackle. But Missouri kind of attacked him, threw some balls his way, and he had a completion down the field and a PI there as well. I think he steps up. I don't necessarily think Auburn throws his way a lot, but I think if they do, then he's back to his old Keeley self, and he's not giving up any big plays down the field. He may give up a catch or two underneath if it just happens that way, but no more big balls.
Leads me to mine. Offensively, I'm gonna do it because if he comes back like I think he will, we go for it a lot. We need to do this. We need to stretch the ball down the field vertically. And what better way to do it than throwing to AD Mitchell if he's back? It's that simple. It's easy to say Bowers because I think you have to feed Brock a lot in this game. to assert that dominance, is run the score up. So it's never it's always a safe bet to pick to because I think Kirby wants to make a statement in this game. We've had two crap weeks compared to our standard, right? That we're held to. It seems like what better way than doing it against a literal, probably one of your biggest rivals, right? Make a statement against him. AD comes back, huge game. I think he's your offensive player of the game. Now, defense, this is where it's going to be interesting. Smile Mondon. Smile Mondon had an excellent game, right? You're never going to have a perfect game, right? You're never going to have that. But his athleticism, he is a physical specimen. He is a freak of nature. I think you will see him making plays, limiting Tank Bigsby, right? And that's the biggest thing, limiting Tank Bigsby. He's also physical enough. Tank's if you know Tank Kobe, he's pretty good at pass pro too. But I think you see Smile Mondon have a game. I think you see him probably line up with Tank Bigsby. So there's an experience gap, right? But his measurables and his the tangibles, things you can't coach, his speed will match up well, in my opinion. So if things go as planned, I think Smile Mondon could have a huge game. Tackles, right? Like I said, covering Tank Bigsby. And don't fail me now, please don't. Please don't do that. Also, if you're watching this, let us know who your players of the game are too. We'll read them out as well. All right, let's move on to keys to victory. Kobe, give me give me your keys to victory on how Georgia can win this game against Auburn.
Give everybody at home a good laugh that it's a lot of Georgia fans been thinking this probably all week, even last week some. Key to victory: when you're in the red zone, score touchdowns, don't kick field goals, score sevens, not threes, and you win big games. It's the truth. But in reality, a key to victory, I think, is going to be, and you saw it last week, controlling the line of scrimmage. Kirby preaches that we have to control the line of scrimmage. We're going to dominate you up front physically, and that goes on both ends, offensively and defensively. And I think this week, that's what has to show back up is our offensive line is going to bully you, and we're going to bully you for 4 quarters, and by the fourth quarter, you're going to give up, and we're going to. If it's close, we're going to run away with it. And if it's not close, we're going to put in our twos and let them bully you for a little bit. I think key to victory, just, dominate line of scrimmage, run the ball effectively when you need to, let that lead to a play action pass game, let that lead to read option, and then defensively, limit Tank Bigsby, limit the big plays. Don't have, the big plays that end up burning you on the back end.
I'm gonna keep mine simple. Two things offensively. First one, period. Execute. Execute. Second, Todd Monken. Get right. In my opinion, the play calling was kind of subpar, right? I love Todd Monken to death, but it was a down play calling game too, right? Go back to don't have to dig in your bag of tricks or anything. Shouldn't have to at least. Um, just know. Obviously, listen. I think you're going to see Georgia just physically assert dominance here, right? At least you better, right? It's Auburn. I'm just letting you know, Todd. If you're listening to me, I want you to make a statement against Auburn for me. Thank you, please, and thanks. Defensively though, contain Tank Bigsby. If you do that, force Robbie Ashford to win the game with his arm. I'm telling you right now, if you can contain Tank Bigsby, he's going to make some turnovers. Uh, I just feel that way. Pressure, sacks, whatever. You're going to create a bunch of havoc if you can contain Tank Bigsby. It's that simple. Um, Kobe, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna come back for our Week 6 picks of the week. So stick around. And we're back. And moving on to our Week 6 picks here, we're gonna go break down the standings, Kobe. Through week through week 5, obviously. Brigade, we're going to start off with you. You went 6-4. If you're seeing this, there's a lot of 6-4 this week. Overall in the season, 35-15 with a 70% hit with the right picks. Brigade is in the lead. Juan actually had the best week, going 8-2. So he's on the record at 34-16 with one game back, one pick behind the Brigade. That's 68% hit for the season. Kobe, you're third. 6-4 week, right? 31-19 on the season so far. 4 games back, 62% hit. And as always, as it's been most of the season, I'm 6-4, the epitome of mid, if you will. 30-20 on the season, 5 games back. Boy, oh boy, how interesting is that? I've literally went 6-4 the past 3 weeks. It's a shame. I should do better. Patrick is telling, hashtag Juan is no longer mid. Your words, not mine. He's making some calls, right? He's making some calls there. I don't know what he's doing, but he did something right.
Yeah, Juan had some good picks last week. There were some teams let us down. Kentucky, I'm looking at you. You know,
UW.
you had the ball right. UW was never in that game. I wish they'd have won, but
I guess.
Kentucky. I think Kentucky was the one Juan had that he had Ole
Yeah,
Miss and we
he had
didn't.
Ole Miss.
And
Yeah.
I was watching that game just going, come on, Kentucky, come on, Kentucky. And then when they fumbled, I was like, Juan is going to be so happy knowing that this is how he wins this pick this week.
And I made the mistake picking. I think I picked A&M over Mississippi State. Mississippi State just bullied A&M. Like now that I know this fun stat about Jimbo's A&M defense, they are, if I'm not mistaken, they are 97th in average yards per attempt run on them. That's terrible. And their offense is literally stuck in 2013. I'm just gonna leave that there. There's some talk about Jimbo possibly getting balled out if things continue to trend the way they are. And we'll talk about this, but first, let's go ahead and jump into our first pick of the week. East Carolina going down to Louisiana, taking on Tulane. I think this will be an interesting game. Kobe, who do you have?
I think I got to ride with East Carolina. They gave NC State quite a scare, gave them everything they wanted. Should have won that game for sure. Shout out former UGA football walk-on Jalen Johnson. He's one of their top wide receivers at East Carolina now. I think he has a big game. I think I just think they're going to be too much for Tulane, even at home. So
You know what? I'm going to contrast you with this. I get Tulane. Right, you and Juan are on the same page though, Kobe. But me and the Brigade are sticking together here. 67% chose Tulane over East Carolina. Listen, I know you know that I'm from North Carolina, but I just think if you look at Tulane's schedule to date, Tulane has played some good teams and they've won against some good teams. And I think those quality wins are going to translate into a dogfight. Listen, the spread is 2.5 as Tulane being a home favorite. I think they cover. Listen, it's just a field goal, which kind of tells me that it can go any way. Give me Tulane. Give me Tulane. It's that simple to me. Um, I see KTG in the building. Yes, sir. Moving on to the next game. This game got interesting because of what happened last week. Um, you're looking at what UW what they did. They laid down against this team. Now you look into Utah versus UCLA at UCLA. Cam Rising coming into the Rose Bowl. I mean, let's be honest, it's a quarter of the way filled up, if that ever. But UCLA is playing some damn good football. Chip Kelly's got his best quarterback to date there with DTR. Um, Listen, I think that's set up for a good game. Kobe, who do you got in that one?
I just want to ask somebody in the chat, can we get a time check on that game? Is that going to be Pac-12 after dark this week? Because if so, get your popcorn ready because that is going to be a high scoring affair out in LA.
Get you
Um,
some coffee. Get some
it,
coffee. Stay the hell up for that if it
it'll
is.
be, you and whoever watched it in your living room, you can feel like you're right there because if you were actually in the Rose Bowl, you'd have front row seats because nobody shows up at those games. So,
It's a travesty. It
yeah.
really is. They're
So
playing some good football.
they are. I mean, they're undefeated. They have Chip Kelly. I mean, he's not a terrible college coach by far. If UCLA shows up like they did last week against UW, if they show up and the offense looks the way it did, if the quarterback plays the way he played, I think you could sneak up on Utah. And so for that reason, I'm a ride with UCLA this week. I got to catch up in these standings for the pick'ems, and this is going to be my pick'em of the week where I go against the wave, and I'm gonna pick one up, and all y'all are gonna lose.
You know what? Hear me out, man. This game was hard for me to pick because it's a conflict of interest. Okay, I want UCLA to win because UCLA is playing some damn good football. They really are. They really are. DTR was showing the hell out against Washington. The Go Dogs, the great value Go Dogs, if you will. He was balling the hell out. But what scares me is I don't care. I know the game, the scoreboard dictates one thing, but the how the game actually played out is different, right? I still get a little bit uncomfortable with them letting them come back in the game as close as they did. Made it a game, right? With that being said, I think the experience, I'm just saying, I have to go Utah on this. Juan chose Utah as well, and 77% of the brigade chose Utah as well. However, we have some disagreement here. Uh, KTG says UCLA never trust a team that loses to Florida. Um, you know, I, KTG has a point from what Pat says too. Listen, I know that what we're thinking here, it's a 4 point spread, right? I just think that Utah gets it done by a touchdown. I think it's going to come down to a last minute touchdown. They'll score, and then UCLA will probably force or give a turnover up in the last minutes to secure the dub there. It's just I won't. I wish both. I wish UCLA. I really do, but I like both teams too much. Um, Kobe, you ready for this? We're moving to the Big 12, right? We're moving to the Big 12, and there's a huge game taking place. Can in the chat, can anyone let me know what game it is?
College game days there.
And I'm not talking about the Red River Shootout because well, Oklahoma's ass. Simple as that. Got exposed to the team that we're about to bring up, and that's TCU traveling to Lawrence, Kansas. Kobe mentioned it, first time ever, by the way, going game day coming to Lawrence, Kansas for football, by the way, to take on an undefeated Kansas team. Both teams ranked in the top 25. Who do you have taking this?
Mm-hmm. It, I mean, who? It's one of those things. Like, who would have thought? It's the whole reason why the preseason top 25 is so funny. It's the same thing. Like, you just never know who's going to be the surprise of the year. And if you'd have told anybody that Kansas has a chance to be bowl eligible after their sixth game of the year, they would have asked you what year you talking about because you wouldn't have thought it would have been football this year.
Hell
Um,
no.
TCU looked really good. Max Duffy looked really good against Oklahoma. Oklahoma also just kind of looked really bad. And Kansas got it done against Duke last week. I think the emotion, college game days in town, it's going to be a packed house, which I don't even know how many seats are in Kansas Stadium.
Not even close to what you see in the SEC, but still, nonetheless,
I think
it's gonna be electric. I think it'll be
here's
electric there.
here's I don't care, throw everything else out the window. I think Kansas finds a way to get it done at home. 6-0 Kansas. Let's ride.
Oh goodness, the Let's Ride chant. KTG says Rock Chalk, baby. Listen, this is another conflict of interest game for me, man. I love the story of what Kansas is doing right now. Lance Leipold is doing an amazing job, and Jalen Daniels is a wild ass quarterback. He's playing some damn good football. But TCU, man, TCU is no slouch right now, and I know Oklahoma played the worst game that I've seen since probably the 1990s. Anything in 2000 and beyond, that was a terrible, terrible performance. I you know what, I want Kansas to win. I just got TCU winning this. Juan has TCU 62% of the brigade has TCU winning this, even on the road as a 7 point favorite on the road. By the way, um, honestly, listen, I picked TCU, but it won't surprise me if Kansas pulls out the win because I've said it before. I'm gonna keep saying this again. This is 2007 written all over it. Did you know that in 2007 Kansas finished seventh in the rankings? By the way, Kobe, did you know that?
They were up to 2 at one point, if I remember right.
They were. They were. So, listen, when I say 2007 vibes, that's exactly what I mean. This is a perfect example. Um, Now, Kobe, you ready for this? Let's move to the SEC from here on out. SEC games. First off, Ole Miss traveling to Nashville to take on them Commodores. Who you got?
This is going to get a little repetitive for you folks listening at home. You're going to make sure your podcast doesn't skip, but watch this right here. We got Ole Miss winning against Vandy.
We've got Ole Miss winning against Vandy. Just saying. Listen, I don't think it's a game. They're 18.5 point favorites. Vanderbilt is playing some good football, right? For what for the Vanderbilt standard that we've seen, right? Ole Miss is just too much, right? For this week, Vanderbilt is just not a match. Um, I think Mike Wright can do some things, but Ole Miss is actually forming a good defense, and I think that's going to be a big factor to help them probably even cover the 18 and a half. Um,
Patrick, Patrick in the comments talking about Vandy wins the pregame debate. Ole Miss wins the game. You know, I would say that in years past that Vandy would win the math debate too, but Lane Kiffin and this analytics book that he carries around of the odds of going for it on fourth down and what play to run on 3rd and 2 and when to kick a field goal and when to go for it. It'd be a close. You give them some math, it'd be close out there in Vanderbilt. But
I want to go back to KTG's comment here, bringing it back, doing the stat check for us. In '07, it was number one Missouri, folks, taking on number two Kansas. That welcome to 2007 again. Okay, that's crazy. And to Patrick's point here, Vanderbilt wins by default pregame because how do you argue against a bunch of drunks? That's all they're good for, partying and not showing up outside of last week. So explain to me how that's even a question. Ole Miss will win the football game though, but yeah, let's keep moving on. Uh, Next game, the Gamecocks traveling up to Lexington and taking on those Kentucky Wildcats. Kobe, you talked about Kentucky losing in horrible fashion. That was a back-breaking loss. Who you got in this one?
this one might come back to bite us all in the butt this week. Just you come off a heartbreaking loss. You literally in the clutches of a win. Get the ball down to your 5 yard line. You run a play, touchdown. Kentucky, wait, there's a flag. Play doesn't count. Back up to the 10. And then strip sack, fumble, lose the game, which would have been, in my opinion, one of the better wins in the Mark Stoops era to go into Ole Miss and win. I can't help but worry that in the past, when Kentucky has had all this hype surrounding them, that when they finally lose and have the letdown, it tends to have an effect on their game the next few weeks. Like last year, they're looking good. They play the Dawgs. We beat them. They lose 2 more games the next 2 weeks in a row to teams that they just shouldn't have lost to. Hopefully, Beamer Ball doesn't sneak up on them. I'm picking Kentucky to win, but don't be surprised if the if the Gamecocks give them more of a game than most people expect.
I'm glad you feel that way. First off, Kentucky, you're a 10.5 point favorite at home. You'll cover that. I'll tell you why. 100% of the brigade thinks Kentucky's got this. Juan's got Kentucky across the board. Here's why. Marcus Satterfield is a big problem for South Carolina. And what reason? Even on fourth down, folks, think about this. If you watch that game that they played, uh, who was it? They played it against Kentucky, by the way. No, I mean not Kentucky. Excuse me. It was their first game. Well, either way, a couple games back, right? South Carolina on fourth down, by the way, fourth and long. Why are you going to throw a screen pass or a swing pass? Like, I've literally talked to South Carolina fans, and they're calling him swing pass sap. That's all they throw. You've yet to utilize Spencer Rattler. Hell, I haven't even saw him throw a deep ball, man. Like, we saw his ability to throw the deep ball at Oklahoma. I have yet to see that shit happen at South Carolina. Yet to see that. I think maybe one time they threw it on a deep bomb and he connected. Outside of that, you're throwing swing passes on third and a mile, and you wonder why you're having offensive struggles. Maybe you need to look in the mirror right there, right? Like, he's if you bring in the right offensive play caller, there's no reason why you have a talent. Listen, you can say what you want about his time at Oklahoma and whatnot, but he's a lot better than what they had last year, and you don't look like it because your offensive play calling is straight dookie. Okay, straight dookie. I got Kentucky winning big, and we're just going to move on to the next one, and that's Arkansas and Mississippi State. Arkansas coming off of an inexcusable loss, if you will, to A&M, if I'm not mistaken. Mississippi State, literally just handled business against A&M. Arkansas lost to Alabama, excuse me. Mississippi State took care of business. Kobe, who you got on this one?
This is one of those ones that your heart tells you one thing, your head tells you another. Um, Arkansas has burned me the past 2 weeks in these pick'ems. Um, have nothing but love for Coach Pittman out there, but you can't deny that Arkansas's DBs and secondary are a bit of a liability, and Mississippi State's going to throw that thing maybe 65 times this game, which they have committed to the run game a lot more, but I think Mississippi State gets it done at home, beats Arkansas. Um, as much as it pains me, I think they get it done.
I mean, Arkansas. I know it was Alabama. Listen, at one point, Arkansas was literally threatening to run to literally take the lead against Alabama. Scoreboard don't show you that, right? Obviously, Bryce Young goes out, Jalen Milroe comes in that regard, and they start to sit there and run basically all the way back to down Tuscaloosa. They run all the way back from Arkansas to Tuscaloosa, basically just run all over that defense in the second half. Give me Mississippi State though, because I'll tell you why. Mississippi State showed me a tendency that I have yet to see under Mike Leach. They can actually run the ball. Now, question is, what does it mean that they did it on Texas A&M and not somebody else? Listen, they're 8.5 point home favorite. Mississippi State is over Arkansas. I feel like that might be a little bit high for what it's worth. I have Mississippi State winning this. I have probably Arkansas covering the 8.5. I think it's probably a 6 point win. Mississippi State over Arkansas, but give me Mississippi State nonetheless. Juan has Mississippi State, and the Brigade also has Mississippi State. 75% chose Mississippi State. Excuse me. With that being said, we move on to those Tigers that we just faced, traveling to the swamp. Kobe, playing those lousy, stinking Gators in the swamp. Who you got in this one?
I'd love to say that I think Missouri goes down there and gives them just as tough a time as they gave us, and I think they will challenge them. I mean, I think they showed us some complicated pressures, some stunts on the line, some blitzes that definitely gave us a lot of trouble. I don't think Florida is immune to that. I think if they show them exotic pressures and get Anthony Richardson rattled, that they could have some trouble. With it being in the swamp, I definitely think that Florida's going to find a way to pull it out at home. Kind of like we've talked about, Missouri has almost found a way to lose the past 2 weeks in a row, more than the team playing them has found a way to win. I think Missouri loses, so let's go Florida wins. As much as that is painful to say.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I got Gators winning. 11-point favorite though at home. I don't know how to feel about that spread though. I feel
It
like
won't be pretty for a while.
yeah. I think they. I think you see. I think you see Florida win by 13. So I got Florida covering the spread. Juan has Florida, and also 73% of the brigade. Bishop Don saying Mizzou gets blown out. Pat says the Bishop Don guy's the elite, kind of goatish, if you know what I mean. You may be right onto something there, Pat. I'll tell you what. This next game, Kobe, I'm excited as hell to watch this game. Tennessee traveling to LSU. If you don't know why I say that, because if you go back, look at the history. Look at the history of these last several games that's been played in Tiger Stadium for that matter. Absolute pandemonium and chaos. It's that simple. Kobe, though, who you got in that game?
It's gonna hurt some people's feelings, but I'm excited to see Tennessee bringing back the smoke grays, the charcoal Tennessee grays, all gray down in LSU. Um, I think it's one of those things that you're gonna kind of see what Tennessee's made of this week. You have BJ Ojolari, you have some guys that can rush the passer. You're gonna see what Hendon Hooker and the Tennessee offense can really do. You're playing down in Death Valley, but I think at the end of the day, I think Tennessee's just too much to handle. I think LSU's just not there yet. Um, I think it's a battle of the mobile quarterbacks that can throw the ball around a little bit, but I think Tennessee wins. I don't know what the spread is, but I'd say Tennessee wins by 14 to 17, pretty easily. Can't hear you if you're talking, Robert.
Uh oh. Uh oh.
I can
Tennessee. Yep. Tennessee is a 3 point. Tennessee is a 3 point favorite on the road. What that tells me though is this: BJ Ojolari and Ali Gay are going to create enough pressure to keep this close. I think the problem is can LSU's offense do something with Tennessee's secondary? Can they do enough to keep up with it? I don't think they cover just enough. So that's my thought there. I've got Tennessee winning this. 87% have Tennessee winning, and Bishop Don says Tennessee crushes LSU, and Pat says Tennessee wins by a mustard bottle. He might be onto something there too. Um, you ready for this one? This one has preseason written all over it. Texas A&M going to Alabama, right? If you don't know, you missed the offseason drama, if you will, between Jimbo and Saban and all that bullshit that went with it. Um, I'm gonna go first on this one. Let me do this one. A&M's about to get obliterated. I don't care if Bryce Young is in or not, because Jalen Milroe can run the ball just as good as he can pass the ball. And Jameer Gibbs, we saw what they did against Arkansas. God forgives, Bama won't Saturday. They won't. Give me, let's just look at this. Let's look at this. Bama is a 24-point home favorite against the Aggies. Bama wins easily. They cover that easily because they have a defense that's going to force Max Johnson to or Haynes King. We don't even know at this point. If you're in your backup quarterback feelings too, I'm gonna take it over. I'm gonna let Kobe talk a little bit about this more though. But I'm telling you right now, A&M ain't nobody gonna forgive you. Listen, ain't nobody gonna feel sorry for you after this. I'm just saying, you've had it coming all off season. Nick Saban, I guarantee you, has those receipts. Been watching that video, all that press conference all week. He been waiting for this because you're not playing in College Station this year. You're playing in Tuscaloosa. It's about to get ugly, folks. Kobe, what do you say?
So I think that I'm going to allude to our game a little bit and then bounce back to this one. I think people can smell the blood in the water. There's a lot of blood in the water for Brian Harson, and possible that he could be let go at any moment. A big loss in a big rivalry game against Georgia may be the thing that tips that. I think that there's some rumors, there's a few drops of blood in the water for Jimbo over at Texas A&M. There's a big buyout looming. There's a couple big things that may make it difficult to get rid of him. But this is the kind of game after losing at Texas A&M, after the comments kind of put at Saban um, in the offseason. If Nick Saban, you'll never admit it. Kirby didn't admit it when they were asking if they're going to fire Brian Harson. He goes, "That's not my business to worry about. I have to worry about Georgia." Saban will tell you the same thing about Jimbo. My job is to worry about Alabama, putting our guys out there. But if there's a sense of blood in the water that Nick could be the reason Jimbo gets fired at Alabama,
I'm just saying.
or Jimbo gets fired at Texas A&M. I'm sorry, but
No, I got
by
you.
playing Alabama.
Listen, I'm just saying. After what the Aggie fans saw last year, how they beat Bama, right? I don't care what happened. I'm just saying this: that if they get blown out like I projected, that 80 some million might be just enough to swallow. Because I'm telling you right now, if you lose in convincing fashion, like I think they are going to, what is that recruiting class going to look like? Like
Cool.
what I mean by that, like, listen, ain't nobody going to want to sit there and play for that if you can't do nothing and you get like. I think the bigger telltale sign for the recruiting cycle, right, that they just brought in could be South Carolina because if they go around and fuck around and lose to that, it's a wrap. It's a wrap.
Well, we've
But
seen it the past few weeks. You've seen it the past few weeks. They lose at home versus App State. Okay, that raises some questions. You bring in an inept Miami team that doesn't even score a touchdown, so you luckily win that. You easily could have lost it as well. You play Arkansas, who gives you a free touchdown and misses a last second field goal. You easily could have lost that. So you easily could have lost to App State, Miami, and Arkansas back to back to back. You go into Mississippi State last week and get embarrassed, get 42 points hung on you. And then you're probably going to get 45 points hung on you this weekend, if not 50 in Tuscaloosa.
like I said, they are 97th in the country in average yards per carry against. Keep that in mind because Jameer Gibbs could run a country mile on them.
Yeah,
And listen,
Alabama
it,
wins big and covers without Bryce Young this week.
yeah. Listen. If Bryce Young plays, it's going to get even worse. I'm looking at numbers based off of Milrow because I'm telling you right now, if you don't listen, and Georgia fans, tune into this, folks. Listen closely. It's going to get ugly because I think Isaiah Bond is about to be a breakout player as a true freshman for Alabama. If you don't know, I guarantee you Juan knows about him because he came from Buford. The kid is in my opinion, I feel like he's got game changing speed. And Bryce Young will start hitting that in stride. And once he does, back to the Bama that you're used to seeing. And what better way to have a breakout than doing it against A&M and the team that sat there and did all that shit in the offseason? Listen, it's about to get ugly. But moving on to the most important game, as Chad Buchanan says, my dogs, a big dog. You ready for this? Georgia, Auburn, Deep South Soldiers rivalry. The next chapter is about to be written Saturday. Now, with that being said, Kobe, who do you got in this game? We're not doing score predictions just yet. We're calling an audible on this. Who do you got first? Who's winning this game?
Kind of just like I said, you definitely feel the blood in the water over at Auburn, and it always makes you feel good if you're the reason that your rivals are having to look for new leadership. I think the guys have a good week of practice this week, and I think that the offense really starts clicking. You get some key pieces back. Um, I think you win this one running away pretty easily. Um, you keep them out of the end zone the whole 9 yards this week. Back to the Georgia you're used to seeing. Hopefully you get some of your red zone issues fixed. My score reflects that you still maybe sputter and kick a field goal here or there where maybe you shouldn't have, but Dogs on top this week.
Listen, if we did this a week ago with the Missouri game, and if I could go back in hindsight, it's going to make you question it. But what did I, Kobe? What do I need to repeat myself how I started the show? Do I need to do that for the folks? Do I need the earmuffs again, folks? Do we need the earmuffs? Yeah, let's earmuffs. 2 seconds for earmuffs. Fuck Auburn. With that being said, give me Dogs on top. Now, Juan and the Brigade has the Dogs on top as well. Right? Listen, this is the game, Kirby. Make them fire Harson. It's that simple. Kobe, you alluded to it. Make them fire Harson after this week. Now, I'm going to pull up the graphic here for those watching. We're going to break down our score predictions, Kobe. 96%. Pat, we need to figure out who the hell voted for Auburn in this. 96%. I need to find out who. Are you infidels? You not believe in Georgia? Maybe so. Kobe, you have the Dogs winning 34-3. Tell us why.
That just breaks down for me in simple football terminology. That's a touchdown a quarter plus two field goals, 28, 31, 34. So at this point, as a touchdown a quarter would be a good way, to play this game. You're going to start kind of methodical. If Auburn's smart, they're going to try to play keep away as much as possible, run as much clock, limit the amount of times you get to touch the ball. I see us coming out, scoring a touchdown early, scoring early, a touchdown or a field goal, and then scoring a second time in the first quarter. And then I could easily see us doing the same thing. I could see it being 17-0, or even 21-0 going into the halftime. And then you come out and you stay methodical in the second half. You score your other, 13 points, score one more touchdown, kick some field goals late. I give up maybe a field goal late. It's just one of those things that if you fix the red zone, that could easily be a 40-point, 40-3. But at this point, you're going to have to show me you're going to have to show me that you can not kick field goals in the red zone and score touchdowns. And then maybe, you're talking about that 45-3 Juan's looking at.
Yeah, Juan has 45-3. I think he's on board with us getting back on track. Chad Buchanan asked the perfect question. Which Georgia team shows up Saturday, Kirby's Dogs or Rick's Dogs? My score prediction, 38-13, tells me that I think you start to see Kirby's Dogs come back. Those 38, listen, you look at 38, I'm telling you right now, that's 5 touchdowns, right? 5 touchdowns and a field goal, right? Georgia gets back on track. You're going to see you're going to see the execution kick up. You're going to see it pick up. And those red zone, I guarantee you, I'm going to say this, two of them, 2 touchdowns, come in the red zone. Just going to leave that there. I'm making that prediction. 2 red zone touchdowns. Listen, I think you're going to see – I think you'll see a bomb to Arian Smith or Lad McConkey. Hey, replay last year for me would be ideal, right? Just going to leave that there. But also the 13 points. I think our defense is going to have our hands full early with trying to figure out and game plan against Tank. I think Tank will score a touchdown. Outside of that, I think they're limited to 2 field goals, if that. The 13 was kind of questionable for me, but I think you give them 13 to be safe. So I got 38-13. Juan's got them to 3. Defense shows out. Offense gets back on track. I'm on board with it. Apparently, it is not that are watching. It is not Joel. So good for there. Good for that. Um, with that being said, Kobe, let's wrap this thing up, man. Um, Listen, it's Auburn Hate Week. I'm just saying. Uh, I just genuinely don't know when you come to this game, right? Like the hate's there, right? If don't you look at it as kind of being down? I don't see that right now, right? Auburn is down, but Georgia has played down, right? Final takeaways for this game, Kobe. I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna wrap. I'm gonna take my final takeaway for this game, and then we're gonna call this thing. We're gonna wrap this thing up.
Biggest takeaways is you're right. It's a rivalry game. Say Auburn's down, one way or another. You can't slip up. I think our guys, our coaches, are going to be embarrassed from kind of what happened last week. I think they show up with a really good game plan to control Auburn and to be able to move the ball and score points. You kind of saw last year that Auburn gave you a little bit of a struggle at first, but I think this year they're not even close to that. Dogs win pretty big. Kind of get people buzzing about them again. The offense is buzzing, the defense is buzzing. You kind of get over this hump of a lull. So
Listen, I'm gonna tell you this right now. To hell with Auburn, right? And that's the bottom line because 1-3-16 said so, right? Juan's not here today, obviously, but he's here in spirit. And I had to give that allusion there to Juan there. Listen, you get back on track. You show the nation that you're back to what you were for the first 3 weeks. We fell in the AP poll to 2. I'm just saying that's right where we want to be. In my opinion, that's right where you want to be because Alabama's got some tough games coming up. So you might just see us pop back into 1. Neither here nor there though. Take care of business against. Well, I don't know. Kobe, are they War Eagle or are they the Tigers? I've yet to figure that out. I don't hell they don't even know. So if anybody in the chat wants to explain to me, the identity crisis in Auburn, it's not just Harsin. It's legitimately what their mascot is. I don't know. Um, are they the Tigers? Are they War Eagle? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they get it figured out, right? Maybe they get their identity squared away. But neither here nor there, right? We'll wrap this thing up. Saturday, 3:30, CBS. Mute your channel because Gary Danielson, just my thoughts there. With that being said, Brigade, you came in hot and heavy. Obviously, it's the Deep South Soldiers rivalry. Kobe, we about to have ourselves a good weekend?
I'll be watching from a wedding.
Oh, my God. Fall weddings are for casuals, folks. God, you're a casualty, man. At least you're watching it, though. That's dedication enough. But
We'll see.
fall wedding,
hopefully, I catch some of it. We'll see.
God, fall wedding should be a crime. I'm just gonna leave that there. Bishop Don says Auburn is a them they. Fair point. With that being said, have a great day. Remember, if you're watching this, like, subscribe, follow. Whether you're on, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe. And if you're on the podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you listen, right? Follow, like, leave a review. That helps, and it only takes a second. With that being said, fuck Auburn one more time. And I'm going to leave it there on that. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.